Bonjour et bienvenue. Welcome to this press conference of the S&D Group, the last one ahead of the summer break. I hand over to our group president, Iratxe García Perez, and then, of course, it's time for your questions. Merci.
Buenos días.
Good morning, everybody. As always, I'd like to express my thanks to you for attending this press conference. Just to summarize the plenary of July, just before the start of the summer, where hopefully you'll all be able to relax and take advantage of the good weather and spend time with your families, or whatever you wish to do. But hopefully you will be able to relax and we will all come back with our batteries renewed in September. I have no doubt whatsoever. We'll need to be prepared for everything that we will be facing then. And we have to be prepared to this summer, I think, to be able to pay attention to everything that is happening with the war in Ukraine.
Podremos descansar, pero no perder.
So we can relax, but we unfortunately can't switch off from everything that's going on. As I said, to go over what's happening in plenary this week, starting with the vote on taxonomy. As you all know, it's a very important subject. It's important for the Parliament. It's important for our political group as well. From the outset, when the European Commission presented this proposal, we made our position clear that we were against this delegated act. And a brief reflection here. For some people, this debate on taxonomy is diverting attention away from the situation we're in, uncertainty, the kind of energy we need. And of course, we're very aware of the fact that the energy mix of Europe is such that we need all these forms of energy at the moment. All of the forms of energy being produced and used in the EU are necessary. And that's not what's the point here. The delegated act on taxonomy, the only point it makes is determining whether gas and nuclear energy can be considered to be green investments. That's what our group is against. We're not against the use of gas and nuclear energy per se. Of course, we'd like to see a rollout of the use and investment in green energies, which we feel should be called green investment rather than gas and nuclear. Do we think gas and nuclear are necessary in Europe as things stand? Yes, we do. But we can't say that they are green investments. Green investments are in renewable energy. That's what we need to be developing in the EU so that we will not, in the future, have the energy dependency that we do today. For us to roll out those green investments, we want to focus on them. Let me repeat, the debate is not on whether or not gas and nuclear energy can be used in Europe. It's whether they can be considered as green investments or not. And my group is quite clear on this point. This is a position we've held in the two committees that were involved in this resolution, the ENVI Committee and the Economic Affairs Committee. So now we'll have to see what happens at the vote tomorrow in plenary. Then another point is the directive on digital services for the EU. We'll be voting on that this time round. We socialists have insisted that the digital world requires the same rights, certainty, and guarantees to be provided as in the real world. And therefore, there are important measures to avoid bullying, violence, and to guarantee the rights of consumers. Let me repeat, rights are not only provided through legislation to the everyday world, but also to the digital world. And that's what we managed to incorporate into the legislation. Algorithms should not abuse consumers, should not cause damage to their health, they should not create dependency or addictions, they should not undermine our democracies. And that today is a threat in Europe. And what we've tried to do in the DSA is to avoid that happening. So I have to say we are satisfied with the work that's been done and by our colleagues to Cristal Escardamosa, in particular, who was responsible for negotiations and did an excellent job of work. We also tomorrow have a debate on the Czech presidency of the EU. We're quite clear about where the focus of the European agenda is going to be over the next few months: energy security, the welcoming of refugees, reinforcing security within the EU, and an important step forward was taken in Madrid at the NATO summit last week. And these are the major issues then that are a part of the working programme of the Czech presidency. But there are some points we're missing, which as Social Democrats are important, because I would say that the social environmental components are lacking. We've asked for a social summit to be held after the summer. We've requested this various times in plenary, and we have been calling for this for some time. And at the last Conference of Presidents meeting, we included in a declaration adopted last week all of the group presidents' statement that this should be included as well in the working programme of the Commission. Let me repeat, last week we adopted a common resolution, a statement from the group presidents, and then we included a request to the European Commission that a social summit be included in the working programme on the request of the socialists. Well, that's what it was originally. Now it's a request of the whole Parliament because it's included in the resolution. And I should also highlight that this week, amongst the reports being voted on, and we've insisted on this, is that we ensure that the social component is included. So each time that the social component is included in the work of Parliament, that was thanks to an initiative of the Social Democrat group. And yesterday we had a debate on the situation of women's rights in the USA after the ruling of the Supreme Court, which completely takes away protection of women's rights in the US. And we had a debate. What I said, I think, was quite clear there. A group of old elderly men can't decide on the freedoms of women in the 21st century in the US, cutting their rights back. The USA is a country where they decided a few days earlier it was totally free for people to use weapons, but women's rights, no. So when it comes to human rights in general and women's rights in the world, we have to call out anywhere where women's rights are being made vulnerable, and that's the case in the US. But it's not just in the US. The US could just be the start of a pushback of women's rights, which will be suffering and are suffering in other parts of the world, here in Europe as well. And that is why we are requesting that the right of abortion be incorporated into the Charter of Fundamental Rights of the European Union. We've asked this on other occasions, and we're going to be asking it again in the resolution that we hope to see adopted this week. Plus, on the last but one mission of the S&D group, when we went to Israel and Palestine, in Israel and Palestine, we saw that the deterioration of the conflict is increasingly clear. As we've said on various occasions, we have to show solidarity and support to all those who suffer, solidarity and support to the refugees, indeed to all refugees, not just some. In this case, if Europe had acted as it did with the Ukrainian refugees, where we can be proud, we should have done that for other refugees. And the situation in Israel and Palestine, quite clearly, we need to relaunch political action to ensure its solution. It's very complicated, and I know a few days later, after our visit, the government fell and elections had to be called. But what the European Union can't do is just stand by in such a situation. After the summer, therefore, we'll be requesting a debate to be held in the plenary of Parliament to see how we can relaunch efforts to open up a new peace process in Israel and Palestine, where, of course, we will also include the request for an independent inquiry. Interruption.
Can we ask question?
David, I think Iratxe will come to her question. She will finish her introductory statement. Yes, I think she will take the time she needs, and then we get to the questions. Grazie.
Como digo,
As I was saying, we've asked and will ask for an independent inquiry, an international one, into the death of the journalist Sirina Bukakli. We were there visiting her family, and we committed to that. And so I would insist in September we will be asking for a resolution on this. And I also wanted to say, now that activity is coming to an end before the summer, that we're starting a new stage after the summer in August with a mission of the S&D group to Latin America, where we think it's very important that work be done and that we have coordination work done along these lines. The Antonia Orejola, the Foreign Minister of Chile, will be visiting our group this afternoon. The presentation of Chile was presented yesterday, and so I think it's a key moment. We will therefore be visiting Chile, Argentina, and Brazil. And as I said, we'll be working on preparing for that.
Muchas gracias, Iratxe. Now it's time for your questions. David.
Yes, apologies, but there are rules even in this press room, and the rules are that 1/3 of the time is for an introduction and the rest is for questions, because this is a press room where journalists ask questions to politicians, and some of the time should be allowed, and we have 5 minutes left.
Okay.
So
What
my
I
two
would
questions
suggest we
are,
have a
first of
separate
all, on taxonomy, how many dissident vote do you expect in your group? Second question is on the next Secretary General. Do you have a candidate, or do you support an agreement among groups? Are you happy with the names that are floating around this House? Thank you.
con respecto a taxonomía,
On the taxonomy issue, I don't like the word dissidents. On this occasion, as on many others in our group, we've had a discussion because there are differing positions. Obviously, there are some colleagues that have a different position to the majority position in the group. But I think we need to understand that these differing views and approaches exist. And the line of the group is to vote in favor of the resolution that we got from Econ and Envy. It's a broad, very broad majority position in the group. I'm not going to give you numbers. I don't think that's appropriate, but I would say that there is a very broad majority in the political group that will be supporting the resolution. Then on the question of the Secretary General of the Parliament and other responsible positions in this House, there's enough time for us to calmly look at this issue and responsibly look at this issue as is required. At the moment, the S&D group is not a part of any agreement. We haven't heard any name mentioned. What we have heard as a group, though, is that The names that will be put forward for this post have to be qualified, have to have the right qualifications and training, and the right personality traits required, that we need a geographical, gender, and political balance. And let me repeat, we need time for all of the groups to enter into a debate on this. Our group has no agreement with any other group on this. We haven't put forward any names or conditions. What we have asked and required is that responsibility and respect for the procedure be observed. There is time until December, when the current Secretary General has said he will be leaving his post. So we do not feel it's necessary for us to urgently enter into these processes, which is why in the Conference of Presidents yesterday, my group asked that we postpone this issue, because with the respect for the institution, it's absolutely vital that we approach this seriously and that we have the best names put forward, the best people, so that the best job possible can be done.
Further questions? Yes, Lorenzo, and please always introduce yourselves. Thank you.
Lorenzo Consoli, Asca News.
Lorenzo Casca News.
I understand perfectly your Spanish. This is about the NATO decision to allow Sweden and Finland. You just said that the European Parliament has to promote the human rights in all the world. And in this decision, there is a deal that has been struck that has been that has been signed by Sweden and Finland with Turkey, which concerns the people that are accused to be terrorists, and they are to be extradited to Turkey. And as you know, the definition of terrorism in Turkey is completely different and much larger than the definition of terrorism that we apply in the EU and with the EU list of terrorist organizations. Do you think that the European Parliament, your group, should be involved in this discussion, how the governments and the magistrates in these two countries will treat these demands of extradition for people that the Turkish consider terrorists and that sometimes are just oppositors to the Turkish regime? Thank you.
Bueno, la verdad es que
Well, I understand your question, but asking me as president of the S&D group how this issue will be approached by those that are responsible in Sweden and Finland is a bit difficult for me to answer. All I can do is tell you my position. I think that at the NATO summit this was addressed, and I have no doubt that the defence of human rights can be made compatible with the guarantee of security in the European Union. And at this point there are two countries that are asking to join NATO so as to guarantee the area of security. Having said that, I have no doubt either that these two countries and the rest of the European countries will continue to work to guarantee democracy. I know that it can be difficult to strike balances, but I have no doubt that that will be achieved in the best way possible.
And another round. Do we have more questions here in the room? If that is not the case, I would like to thank you all, wish you beautiful holidays and a good time, and muchas gracias, Iratxe.